Toronto Maple Leafs are forced into an impossible decision, and this was inevitable as we are now just days away from the beginning of the regular season. Some new reports, some new updates have dropped surrounding Easton Cowan and also some other players that fans aren't talking enough about. We're going to break down these new updates and discuss what it means going forward as it pertains to a huge decision that is imminent for this team. We also have a few other things on this episode to go over, but before we get into it all, if you're part of the 70% who aren't subscribed to the channel, quick reminder to hit that subscribe button. Your guys' support has been unbelievable. There's a lot to go over today, and hockey is back for the Leafs in a few days, mid this week, and it is super exciting, but there's still a lot of unanswered questions for this Toronto Maple Leafs team. Of course, they played a preseason game yesterday, which featured a few players, including Easton Cowan. And we have a lot to go over today. We're going to be focusing in on a big decision that the Leafs are forced into now, and one that I thought was going to be almost clearer than it is, as we are now, just like I mentioned, 3 days away from, of course, the beginning of the regular season. And a lot of this has to do with Easton Cowan, but there's also some other decisions that the Leafs are forced into. But let's start here as Craig Berube has come out with some recent comments revealing some pretty new information surrounding their thought process, because we know Berube works hand in hand with Brad Treliving now, and he was asked if he's ready for the NHL. I think he is. We've got decisions to make, but I think he showed us enough that he's ready. I mean, he's got a motor on him. He's just constant work, and he's got a high IQ. I like him a lot. So Darius, of course, as of this moment, and this could change within the next hour, within the next day, Cowan is still on the team. Of course, there is still another set of cuts, I guess, if you want to call it that, to be made. Yep. But as of now, and Craig Berube came out and basically said Cowan is ready for the NHL and that they have a huge decision to make surrounding where he's going to fit in. Wouldn't be surprised if he ends up fitting in that third line to open the season on Wednesday. But I'll get your thoughts on that as well.
Yeah, which I think is interesting because we covered it yesterday and it was David Kampf in that spot, but I'm not so sure that's going to be the case. I think they want to save some cap. We don't know exactly what the plan is. They're just doing things right now and they're saving money on David Kampf right now through waivers and all of that stuff. So we'll see how, everything kind of plays out over the next couple of days. Another interesting story, just to bring it up quick, because I don't know if we're going to get to in this episode, is Ben Danford. He's still with the team. Does he get sent back to the OHL? Does he actually play an NHL game? That's an interesting storyline too. But in terms of Easton Cowan, that is huge coming from the head coach of the Toronto Maple Leafs to say those things about that player. He is ready. He sees things that he loves in the player, and obviously he's been utilizing him on the fourth line, but I wonder if now he does move up to the third line. We'll see kind of how the lines play out, and Berube is very particular about certain things, so we'll see how that plays out, but I think he is poised to make the team out of camp. Does he stay there all year? We don't know, but I think he's going to make the team out of camp. But at the time we're recording this, there's a lot of decisions to be made still. They have to figure out who is the backup goaltender of this team, which we'll get to as well. And of course, who's going to be sent down to the Marlies, who's being sent back to junior, and does Easton Cowan ultimately make the team? But the IQ thing here in this quote is huge to me because there are so many players in the NHL that can shoot, that can hit, that can, whatever it is, they can skate, like whatever they're good at, but sometimes they don't have that hockey IQ. They're not the smartest hockey players. Cowan is, you can see it in his play, and Berube is saying that right now that, he really values that. He can play in different positions. He can play different roles that they're asking him, to bring to the team. So high praise from the head coach. I think he's going to make the team. I don't know exactly where he's going to play yet because obviously Lawton getting hurt actually put things way out of whack, way more than I even thought, right? Obviously, because there's going to be injuries during the year, but pretty interesting stuff. I think he's going to make the team. Just depends on where, but this is a great quote from Craig Berube.
Yeah, and another great quote here is from Easton Cowan himself, and he spoke out about getting one more game to make a case for the Leafs job. Really excited for tonight. A bit of a younger group playing, but we're hard workers. We got skill, and we're ready to play. And of course, yesterday's game was an interesting one. At the end of the day, yesterday wasn't going to make or break Easton Cowan's role. They probably have their decision already made up. But again, it is a very difficult one. But he's also getting a ton of praise from guys like Matthew Knies, who are, of course, on the team. And maybe one day they'll factor into a top line together. That's, of course, the goal here, I'm sure. Eventually, Matthew Knies and Easton Cowan, he had a good summer. I could tell he got a lot stronger and a lot faster. He looks a lot more mature of a player. So yeah, he's been having a great camp, and I think he deserves the attention he's getting and the chance to be in the opening night lineup. And these were all quotes that came out in the last 24 hours, mainly last night. I mean, at this point, like, you're at the point where everyone seems to be, it's almost like the elephant in the room now is Easton Cowan making the team. But again, there still is Cal Yarncroke. There is Nick Robertson, which we'll dive into in a minute here. And it's a bit of a difficult decision as it pertains to their growth. I see a lot of you guys in the comments, a lot of people on Twitter are echoing what you said, Darius, basically to put them on the first line with the Marlies, better than the fourth line with the Leafs. that might end up not having to be a major problem here. He might end up on the third line with the Leafs, which kind of is the best of both worlds here if, Scott Laughton is out. Now, we haven't seen this at practice or anything yet. I've been seeing some speculation online. I think it makes a lot of sense to me. If you have a fourth line with, Lorentz and then Nicholas Waugh, it's a weird one. If you can throw Easton Cowan on that third line, you can probably, get away with if you're worried about, of course, him developing, that's probably a good spot to put him. I like the idea of that, but even for me, I'm fine with him on the fourth line.
Yeah, and I'm not too worried. It depends on what the plan is. I'm not too worried about his development in terms of, if they play him for a couple games on the fourth line, he gets that NHL experience, and then he finishes the season with the Marlies playing top line minutes. That's fine. That'll be fine for his development, right? But like you said, he's probably better suited in a third line role, just the player that he is in the NHL. So we'll see like what the plan is, what they're planning to do, because the lines that we saw yesterday too, not talking about in game, the group that did not practice that you're looking at right here, there's a lot of guys missing because they were in the game, right? And maybe not a lot of guys, but a couple guys missing because they were in the game. And like you brought up too, what's happening with Nick Robertson? Is he still an extra, right? I think this injury is interesting because David Kampf I don't know what the plan is right now. I don't think he's going to play.
He cleared waivers, by the way.
He cleared waivers. He can be sent right to the Marlies, all of that. He can also be called back up, but obviously you're going to have to have that salary on the book. So it's going to be interesting. And the fact that it was him, just some of the moves are leading me to believe that Berube does not want that guy in the lineup, because Waugh moves down to the fourth line now, even though they're practice lines, and Domi's now back in the middle, which I don't like, but I understand because there's an injury, right? So it's going to be interesting to see who factors in where. I think there's a better chance now, actually, with Laughton out, which is funny enough, of Cowan actually making the team. I think he's going to make the team at least for a bit. Villanova also cleared waivers, so that's good news. He's going to be with the Marlies, continue his development down there too. But a lot of interesting storylines with a few days left before the regular season. They're going to have to make a couple moves. They might even make one, while we're recording this at this point, because things are happening with a lot of different NHL teams. So should be fun. But there's other interesting storylines with Nick Robertson and with the goaltending too, which is a pretty interesting one.
Yeah, Nick Robertson, he spoke out on being in the bubble again. Something I've dealt with before. You want to be playing more in the consistent lineup, but it is what it is. Season starts in about a week, a bit less than that. You just got to be confident. I think it starts in 3 days now, so it's sooner than Nick Robertson thought. Maybe his season will start in a week with the way things have been going there. But yeah, let us know on Nick Robertson. And again, we'll have a full video probably covering this, but the high-level overview here. He's a part of the team, probably won't be playing a lot. But I do want to touch on James Reimer, who was on the roster behind Dennis Hildeby in yesterday's game. And he spoke out yesterday and said, I never imagined I'd be back. And so this week has been a lot of fun, and it'll be fun to be part of this team again. Seems like he's going to make the team out of camp, into the regular season, of course, and be the backup for Anthony Stolarz. The question is, does it happen right away, or do they give him some reps down there in the AHL? He had a lot to say. Feel free to pause and, read the entirety of the quote. He's basically saying he's going to take it minute by minute, doesn't know exactly what's going to happen now, what decisions are going to be made. This is another difficult one. I thought overall I felt pretty good and made a couple mistakes, but you try and give yourself some grace, and when it's your first touch in a while. So he actually did end up, having I don't know what the best, I don't know what you describe, an interesting game yesterday. I'm not too worried about the result either or. Obviously, Dennis Hildeby, he had a pretty rough game, really, 12 saves on 14 shots, and then Reimer gave up 4 goals, I believe it was. But whatever it was, he looked okay out there, and that's kind of what matters to me the most. This is a backup guy who's going to play half a dozen games, ideally, maybe even less than that, until Joseph Woll gets back. Any thoughts on this decision? This one's probably, honestly, a more difficult one for the Leafs right now than Cowan is, because I assume they've had their mind made up with Cowan for the past couple weeks.
And quick thing on Nick Robertson as well. Per 60 minutes, he's the Leafs' 3rd best goal scorer. Let's all keep that in mind, right? Before the minutes that he's playing. And he scored yesterday, but that's all he kind of does. There's not much there away from the puck. We all know that, right? So they're going to make a decision there. It's going to be interesting. He makes 1.8 now. That's a factor. But anyway, to move on to James Reimer, interesting situation here. He's joined camp late. My feeling, because I like James Reimer, and obviously he was a goaltender for the Leafs like 15 years ago, and obviously got traded 10 years ago. It would be an awesome story if he was the backup of this team, but Hildeby has played really well. So they're going to make an interesting decision here, where I think it could be Hildeby. Personally, I think you send Hildeby down and let him be the starter for the Marlies, get those games in, get his confidence up. Don't worry about anything else. That's just how I feel. But he has played really good in the preseason. So I wonder if they're looking at, like, Reimer hasn't gotten into games. He's, joined us late. It's not his fault, but, I do wonder if they think that it's Hildeby that's going to be the backup. And real quick, before we wrap up, Nick, let's go Blue Jays. Game 2 going down later today.
Yeah, hopefully they can take care of business. Hopefully the Leafs can take care of business in their season opener on Wednesday against the Montreal Canadiens. We'll have a post-game live stream, a lot of stuff coming for you all. So let us know what you think about, of course, everything here. A lot of decisions on the horizon. Moves going to happen probably in the next 24 to 48 hours. So keep you up to date with that. Thank you guys for watching. I'll see you later.